My name's Jordan Smith. I'm advocacy lead for Dimensions, and I'm supported by Dimensions. I moved into flat for the first time, so living by myself for the first time, and it was a block of 6 disabled people. Everyone was supported there, and in like a cul-de-sac. Over the course of time, the neighbours become increasingly sort of annoying at first, sort of like parking our spaces. So we had 1 space per flat, and obviously I have support workers, and it got to a stage one day where someone was parked in my space and the support worker couldn't park, and so they couldn't do the shift, so I went without support for that day. So we complained, and we got my landlord to do a note to say, please do not park here. This is reserved for our residents and their carers. And then we got a note saying, don't touch my fucking car, you fucking window licking cunts. And then gradually they destroyed our bins, put a rat in the bin, set fire to the bin, broke our bin store, parked across all the spaces so no one else could get in. Then it started with name calling and intimidation type stuff, you know, retard, spastic, and all that kind of stuff. They knew what the block was. They knew who was in the block. And in my view, and it was found that they deliberately targeted us because we were disabled. No question in my mind at all. We then reported it to the police, and the first thing the police said was, because you've all got a learning disability, it's going to be difficult to prove in court because the defence would say that people with learning disabilities get things wrong and make things up. And I knew that I wasn't making this up. So I started to log down times and days and things that happened. And, you know, anything, looks and stares and parking and things being thrown and what was said. I initially reported it as a 999 thing. And I reported it as 999. They said, at the beginning, they said it was a neighbourhood dispute and had to go to my landlord. We already tried that, and she was not very good. So I told Mum, I told Dimensions. They went back to the police again, and the police, the call handler said that we need to gather more evidence to make it a crime, because at the moment it just sounds like a domestic neighbourhood harassment case. So after about a month they put it down as harassment, but it was more than that because the neighbours became intimidating to the fact that they were doing something daily, and they were now approaching the building and approaching us. And one day they came up and said, "We know that you've reported us, and we don't care. You can't stop us. Blah blah blah." And then I think the last straw for me was when they squared up to my support worker and pushed him. We then went back to the police, and that's where we had the nice police lady come in and be involved. So they knew that it had been reported, they knew that they couldn't approach us, they knew that they couldn't come into the building, but they were doing subtle things that you may not be aware of. So one of the things was, we have a locked gate with a garden space, and pretty much every other day there was kids climbing over the top of it and jumping around and mucking around in our garden. And it annoyed the neighbours, it annoyed me. And when we told the police, they said there was nothing they could do because no criminal damage had been done. And I said, surely it's trespassing, or surely it's this and that and the other. But and these were just 2 normal police officers that came to investigate that issue. But when I told my other police lady, that's the evidence gathering, we were gathering this evidence, and she later changed it from because of that through events from a harassment thing to a hate crime, or a disability hate crime. They were issued with warnings by their landlords and put down on the, and marked against them as a hate crime, and the police charged them with a hate crime. So that was against their name. So there was two main houses that were doing it, and so the other two got warnings and still lived there, and then the other two had to move out eventually in the end, because they broke their tenancy, and it went to court, and they got they weren't sent to prison, but they got suspended 2 years.